Raven, well, welcome back. Josh and Alex from the Sands here, joined by a mainstay of the Australian MMA scene, Josh Kuhne. So, Josh, thank you so much for joining us today on this not so sunny afternoon here in Australia, man, at least where we are. But how you doing today, man?
Yeah, no, I'm good, man. Thank you. Thanks for asking. It's a little bit overcast here as well, but Australia weather ain't too bad. We don't complain about it often.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, look, man, I want to get straight into it, and I have a bit of a question for you that it might be a bit tough to answer, but I'm
Yep.
really curious to hear your thoughts. We often hear from a lot of fighters that their first loss is sort of, in a way, it can sometimes be a relief after a little while. There's no longer that pressure of what happens if you lose. But I was wondering for you, was it, your first or your second pro loss that was sort of harder to overcome?
Oh, look, man. Honestly, I think the first Dimps, the loss against Dimps in that fight, that yeah, it felt like a loss, but I felt like I also gained a lot from that fight. Still my stock went up. It was a banger of a fight. The fans got to see what I was made of. I got to see what I was made of, and a bit there. So that second loss was really hard to swallow, man, and it still is. Like, I've barely watched the fight back. Just knowing that I went in there and I didn't actually do what it is that I wanted to do. I gave myself up to a lot of the people around me, and I went in and took a game plan that wasn't one that I would have taken myself. But in saying that, man, you live and you learn, and in this sport, your lessons are learned in front of everyone, and they're usually the hardest ones to deal with. Here I am, still training, still got the same goal, still motivated, more motivated than ever. And I'm looking to get straight back in there and fucking fire them back up and show everyone what I've been working on.
Awesome. Joshy, look, man, I know last week you were in Vegas with Volk and the team. For you, man, how has it been being surrounded by guys like, Adesanya, Volk, Tuivasa, Dan Hooker, all these sort of guys that, have sort of reached the pinnacle in the sport? How has that influenced your own career and the way you look at things and assess things in your own career moving forward?
Oh man, it's been such a motivating factor. Like getting off the ground originally was because of Bam Bam, was because of Tai Tuivasa. He invited me out to a fight camp that he was working on, himself, Tyson, and Mark, when they fought, I believe, in Adelaide or Perth, one or the other. They all fought on a card, and he invited me out for that. And I think that was either late 2018 or 19, but that was the first time I'd ever tried MMA. And having seen what those boys put in, and I put about a month's worth of work in, I thought, fuck, this is something that I could have a crack at. And then since then, having met a lot of the other lads along the way, every time I meet them, and especially get on the mats and get to join them in their training schedules and stuff, and it motivates me even more. It makes me hungrier. Like the day I got back from Vegas, after a big weekend and big long flights, I jumped straight back into the gym. I did 2 sessions in the day that I got back. So, man, I'm motivated more than ever. And yeah, I guess having all those guys around me, it's not like it's not going to change the way I do anything, but it definitely motivates me. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So touching on that time in Vegas, I was wondering if I could get your thoughts, on Volk's performance. Did sort of how he approached that fight and how he acted, tactically within the fight, did that sort of match up to, how you think he should have approached that fight, given, the dangers that Yair presents, with obviously his range of striking and his jiu-jitsu now?
Yeah, man. To be honest, I picked the fight down to a T. 3rd round TKO, and my sports bet never fucking felt so healthy, But in saying that, man, I think Volk's a fucking creature of his own, man. The dude's just in a league of his own. His fight IQ, his approach, his well-rounded skill set. I think, like you said, Yair was so dangerous. He's got so many tools. He could throw up so many flashy moves from so many different ranges. He had to take that time to sort of feel it out. At the end of the second, he started, pressing the action and really starting to sort of find his work on him. And then, round 3, I picked that he was going to stop him. I thought even maybe late round 2, depending on how quick he makes those reads and starts pressing him. But round 3, they got the job done, and that was it. All she wrote.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, Josh, something I want to sort of get your thoughts on rather is your sort of main goal in this sport, because you've become very popular, I think, in Australia in the MMA scene here. The fights that you've put on here have been, like the one with Dimps. I remember watching that in my TV last year, and I couldn't believe the fight you both put on. So you become very big here, and you know the name is there. What's the end goal for you in competing? Is it is it sort of reaching the UFC? Is there a chance where you go, you know what, I would entertain opportunities from either PFL or Bellator if they were presented? Is that not what you're looking at to take it that far? What's sort of your main goal in this sport moving forward?
Look, man, I've come from doing very well professionally outside of this sport and giving up a lot to compete in this sport. Like financially, I take a loss. I lose time with my friends and my family, all the other dedications that goes into this sport. So for me, like, this is just for me to grow as a human being. It puts me through the struggles. It makes me humbled every day. It makes me realize, what you're really made of. It puts those things to the test. But in terms of like what I sent to achieve and what I set out to achieve with myself, I want to be a household name within the MMA community. Sure enough, there has actually already been some offers from some other promotions. But for me, I'm going to keep that, my mindset on the UFC. That's where I set out when I very first started. That was my mindset. I want to make it to the UFC, and then I want to, climb in the ranks and do my thing there. I started this sport late, so to think that, have too much obligation, too much, what would you say? Too much pressure on achieving too much in there. Opportunities, to have too much pressure on myself. I'm not unrealistic with that, but I am realistic enough to say that, I'm 32. I'm a professional fighter now. I've gone out there. I've made the name in Australia. I just got to go back out there, cement a couple more wins. I've got a good people around me, and then I can make my way into the UFC and start making my way up and, putting some fucking fights in there for history, I think people know that, like, when they're going to tune in, they're going to watch me, especially from here on forward, where I'm running making my own decisions and I've got a lot of experience, things that are out the way, things that, was just a lack of experience in the past. They're going to tune in for my fights. There's those fighters that you watch that if they're fighting, you're going to watch their cards, and I want that to be me, one of the most exciting fighters.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think that's something that's definitely possible, especially, this leads into my next question, but the growth of Australian MMA, in the last 5 to 10 years, nearly a decade ago, Australian MMA was, not looked down upon, but maybe not given the same level of respect internationally as in America or Brazil in terms of our ability to produce, world-class fighters on an international stage. I was just wondering if you could speak to, given your time in the sport, how you've seen MMA grow here in Australia.
Oh man, especially from when I started to where I am now, it's still been the same sort of group of lads. Now we're just seeing some more dudes getting introduced, as of the recent sort of couple of years. But Australian MMA has just absolutely exploded in the last 5 or so years, I guess you would say. And now we're getting the recognition that I feel like we always deserved. We've always had a massive pool of talent. A lot of shit going on, and now there's gyms popping up that do, our MMA gyms. When I very first started, it was very rare, and you'd have to do jiu-jitsu at this gym, wrestling at this gym, striking at this gym. Now we're finding MMA gyms pop up, and that just host all of it under one banner. So I think the growth of the sport, especially in Australia, has been second to none here, more than anywhere in the world. And now we're finally on the map. Our athletes are getting that recognition that they deserve.
Yeah, definitely. Josh, man, I know you touched on it before about, with Bam Bam inviting you to, the camp with him and Mark and that, back in 2018. But for you, what initially made you interested and made you, you sort of kickstarted that engine for you to want to give it a go and give MMA, pursue it? Because, you're a successful businessman already with, Shout Out to Fresh Ink. You got the tattoo business. And we got you're very successful in that regard. So it's not like these other guys that, I saw a story about Alexandre Pantoja, who was an Uber driver 2 fights ago. You're in a unique position where you don't have to worry about that, and you can just solely concentrate on fighting when you want to train and whatnot. So what initially kickstarted that sort of pursuit for you?
To be honest, man, I was just training for an amateur boxing match. I just wanted to have one professional bout to tick off my bucket list. When I was younger, I was a bit of a rat bag, and I came out on top of most of my endeavors out there. And it was just one of those things. It was just, I wanted to prove to myself that I could hold my own with someone in a professional environment. And, Yeah, I guess, when the amateur match never actually eventuated. I trained for about 9 months, and with about 6 opponents pull out and fall over, and fights didn't eventuate and whatnot. I got offered a fight from Cam O'Neill on Eternal. We'd been sponsoring the events through Fresh Ink, and he came into the studio to get tattooed after one of the events, and I spoke to him about it, and I said, "Oh, I've been trying to get a boxing match." And he's like, "Have you thought about MMA?" Wow. I said, "Man, I just want to fight someone. So if you can get me an MMA match, I guess I'll go and learn some fucking chokes and how not to get choked, and then I guess we'll be laughing, right?" He's like, "Yeah, we'll give it a crack." Sure enough, he gave me an amateur bout 3 months after that, and after I got that first taste for it, I knew that this is something that I have to pursue. Not so much just the feeling of winning, but the whole journey that got me there. Putting in camp, dieting, all the training, all the sacrifice, all the stuff that you put in. And at the end of it, when there is a reward or when you do get that win, there's no better feeling. So I guess taking that first step just sort of trickled me into where I am now. And now I'm pursuing something much larger.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, Josh, a couple of last questions from us, last one from me anyway, but we had a look at your Instagram, man. It's clear you've been itching for a fight and you're keen to return and get another name box. So, man, I was wondering if you could tell us, do you have any specific plans for your next opponent, or, have you heard something maybe about what could be happening next for you?
Yeah, man. I was trying to fight on the last Gold Coast card in July, and then it didn't eventuate. Some stuff between, some stuff with the promotion, and then some stuff with me, and then some time restraints and stuff. So I've been training ever since my last fight. I've been in the gym working. I've been traveling, moving around, learning things and working with some other teams and stuff. I've been assured from Cam Eternal that I will be on the Sydney September card. Awesome. September the 8th in Sydney. He's guaranteed me, it's a small show. There may only be 6 pro fights, but he's guaranteed that I will be one of them. So they've started making some small announcements on there. They're still trying to find me an opponent. Same again, man. I got rushed into this sport pretty early, and I starched dudes pretty quickly. So in a matter of time where, I was only 3 years into my career, I'm fighting dudes like Tim Skillies, who's been seasoned in for how long? And, Abdullah Altagani, who's, he's rated number 1 in Australia. So it's I've been catapulted to the top leagues, and I'm not one to shy away from a fight. I just say yes, 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 yes. Whereas, a lot of people may just pad their records or just get to the UFC just by, not taking those hard fights. But I feel like if I can't handle it on the local scene, what good am I in the UFC? And then I'm going to get put to even harder test in front of all the people. So I'll just take the fights that I can get on the local scene, and, we'll just see what happens and how it unfolds. I'm preparing the best that I can. I'm with a good team. I'm happy. I've just moved 10 minutes from the gym. Prior to that, I lived, within 3 hours of commute to make 2 training sessions a day, which was fucking killing me with all the work and the family and everything that I had. So massive developments now into my training, and I can't wait to show it in my next fight. So yeah, I've been guaranteed a date. I don't have an opponent yet. As soon as I get that, you'll be sure to know about it. I'll be putting it straight up because I'm making sure that they're not fucking pulling out on me.
Well, that's actually a really good card for you to be on too, man. Because obviously the UFC brass is going to be there, so that's a really good opportunity for you to show up and show out, isn't it?
Yeah, man, exactly. I would have. That's why I wanted to get that fight in that one back on the Gold Coast in July, because I would have liked to have. Oh, it might have been, was it July? Yeah, early July. Yeah. I would have liked to have had, another fight in between then and get myself back in the win column prior to coming into that card. So, had something happen and there was a late, they needed a late opponent, last minute opponent or whatnot, I could have jumped in. But, who knows, whatever. I'm happy to just fight on that card, be there, be where it's all happening, and then celebrate with all the boys after when we all do our work.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, man, last one from us, man. Look, I know a lot of guys have talked about over the years that creativity in mixed martial arts, the more creative people, I think, and one I like to reference is Izzy. I think he's the most creative guy, who's very free flowing and that sort of stuff inside the octagon, through his training and everything else. And that's where I sort of tie this in, is because tattooing, I feel like you got to be a pretty creative person, and, you're artistic, you've got to be creative. So if anything, what has tattooing, taught you or influenced you in your MMA career, specifically towards creativity?
Yeah, man, I think, it's funny you mentioned that because it's a thought process that I've had coming into this, and then like that I've sort of retained as well. I feel like the main doing to get to where I am now is that you got to trust the process, and you got to know that it doesn't happen overnight. It puts years and years and years of work, countless nights, countless nights of endless, no sleep, and just hard work, developing that skill set. And I've spent now a couple of years working on those things. Now I'm finding that I've sort of got, my fundamentals down, in most aspects. I can be more creative, and I can bring things to the table with my coaches and say, well, what about this? And what about that? Prior to then and prior to now, I've just been a humble student sitting there saying, yes, sir, no, sir. And like just learning what I can. I feel like I've got myself to a point now that I'm pretty comfortable with the skill set that I have. And, I can incorporate a bit more of my creative side into my actual fighting game. And yeah, it's an interesting question. And it's definitely something that I've held in my mind. Cause like, I'll show off some crazy shit to my teammates and my coach and say, what do you think about this? And they'll be like, what the fuck? Kind of works, but, what made you think of that? I'm like, I don't know, man. It just fucking came to me, Yeah, man. So, it was more until then. I didn't want to be, I want to go and show some crazy techniques that I don't even have the fundamentals down, and I'm trying to, skip ahead of the class. Now I feel like I'm pretty, happy with the skill set that I do have. Got a good basic understanding of most aspects of the game. Now I can be more creative. Now I can, show a bit more of my personality, a bit more of my character into my style.
Definitely. Well, look, Joshy, man, thank you so much for your time today, bro. We really, really appreciate it. You're the most entertaining man, I think, inside the cage in this country. And I speak for Alex, and I really do hope that, your path continues and you reach the UFC, because you're one guy that deserves it. You work hard, and we wish you all the best, man. We'd love to chat to you again in the future, man. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks again. Hey, I really appreciate you guys getting me on, having a chat. These guys are great. And, keep up the good work, man. You're supporting fighters and trying to get us up there. So
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
Cheers, fellas. Enjoy.
Thank you.